Okay, welcome back from winter break. So in this next unit, we're going to need to make sure that we understand how to work with radicals. So for number one, it asks us to go ahead and multiply these radicals. So when you have two numbers inside of the radicals, you multiply them together under the same sign. So we'll go through and do that. What that looks like is we'll do radical 3 times 15, which is just the square root of 45. And then all we need to do is do our factor tree is 45. So 45 becomes 9 and 5. 9 turns into 3 and 3. And remember, we're looking for pairs, so we found a pair of 3. So our final answer will be 3 square root 5. If you haven't gotten the hang of simplifying a radical yet, you really got to get that working now. All right? So step 1 is going to be multiply numbers that are in the same location. What I mean by that is if you go through and you actually see numbers on the outside of your radicals, you can multiply them together. So if you had like 2 square root 3, 7 square root 15, you would do 2 times 7 because they're both on the outside. All right? And then simplify radicals. Using a factor tree. And I'm going to put in parentheses, pull out pairs. Never hit write that, even though we should already know that. All right, now let's go through and look at the next one. So the next one is division of radicals, and it's actually almost exactly the same. Before, when they were both inside, we could go through and we could actually multiply them. These are both inside, so what you can do is you can write it like this. So square root of one big square root, a tall one, 30 divided by 3. Now, I only do this when the numbers are actually divisible. So because 30 is divisible by 3, I write it in one radical together. If it doesn't actually simplify or divide, then I usually don't do this. And you'll see that coming up in the next few steps. So here we have 30 divided by 3. 30 divided by 3 is 10, and it's still in a radical. And then I would factor treat 10. 2 and 5. No pairs there, so this is your final answer. Okay, so step number 1 is to write fraction in one big radical. 2 is to divide the numbers. And 3 is to simplify the radical. Using factor. Alright? So far, nothing super new has happened, but now what's going to happen is you're going to notice in this one, in number 3, we have two things that are in different places. What I mean by that is not only do we have one on top and one on the bottom, but we have one that has no radical at all, and then the one on the bottom is stuck in a radical. So, one new thing that you have to know here is rule number 1. Oh, let me go back to pen. Super big a rule. That rule says, whoops, sorry about that. That rule says no radicals in the denominator. or in the bottom? Let's go bottom. Okay, so that's just a rule. In math, you are not supposed to, if you're fully simplified, you are not supposed to have a square root in the bottom. So, the way to fix that is to always identify what's in the bottom. That's the square root of 5. As soon as you've done that, what you do is you multiply by exactly that on the top and on the bottom. So I'm multiplying by, this is our bottom. So I'm going to multiply it by that on the bottom and on the top. And you might ask me, why in the world would we do that? Well, as you remember, in the top problem, number 1, we went through and we said that when you have two things in radicals, you can multiply them together. So this becomes the square root of 25. Okay? Now on the top, we have 7, which is on the outside, and 5, which is on the inside of the radical. So they do not go together. They must be close. And then you can actually go through, and if you look at it, we have the square root of 25 on the bottom. What is the square root of 25? The square root of 25 is, you're exactly right, it's 5. And that is your final answer. Okay? So we can't do the square root of 5 divided by 5 because the square root on the top, we have 5 inside of that radical, and then we have a 5 on the outside. You can only do operations between things that are in the same location. That's one of the most important things you can get out of this warm-up. Okay? So step number 1. Multiply by whatever is on the bottom. To both the top and bottom. And one of the most important reasons that we have to do this part right here, so you probably are thinking, Ms. Bean, why do we have to do it on the top and on the bottom when all we need to do is fix the bottom? So one thing that's important for us to recognize is that this part right here, any number over itself is just equal to 1. So because we multiplied by 1, we haven't actually changed the value of anything in this problem at all. This fraction is still exactly equivalent. If you put in your calculator 7 divided by the square root of 5, and then if you put 7 square root of 5 over 5, those should get you the same exact decimal. Alright? So, step number 1 was to multiply by whatever was on the bottom to the top and the bottom. And then at the top, you just rewrite the top. In this one, there is no combining of things, but it is possible that that could happen. You'll notice in number 4, it looks like something like that could happen. Rewrite the top. Oops. Combine if possible. And multiply together the bottom. And then your final step is going to be to simplify the bottom. So there are no radicals. Perfect. Alright, so our final answer was 7 square root 5 over 5. Now let's go through and look at the next one. The next one is actually the same exact process. Step number 1 is exactly the same. So multiply by whatever is on the bottom to both the top and bottom. Here's our bottom. So I'm going to multiply by that. Square root 7. 7. Now, in both instances here, we have things on the inside. So 8 times 7 is 56. 7 times 7 is 49. Now, this does look kind of like our problem from number 2. However, 56 is not divisible by 49, so I'm not going to go that route. Instead, what I'm going to see is the square root of 49. The square root of 49 is 7, so that's the square root of 56 over 7. Now, what we need to do here, kind of new but kind of old, square root of 56 is able to be simplified. So, we'll do a factor tree. 56 turns into 2 and 28, which turns into 2 and 14, which turns into 2 and 7. Alright, since we're looking for pairs, I'm going to circle a pair of 2. And then it looks like 2 and 7 are left, which means that 2 and 7 go back together on the inside. So what we have here is 2 on the out, 2 times 7 on the in, over 7. So we'll multiply it back together. 2 square root 14 all over 7. Now, you might be inclined to say that 14 divides by 7. However, 14 is on the inside and 7 is not on the inside of a radical. So this is your final answer. Okay? So step number 1 is exactly the same as what we just did. So number 1, same as above. Number 2, same as above. However, this time we combine. Or we multiplied. Because we could, they were both inside. Step 3 is to simplify the bottom exactly as before. And our step number 4 this time was to simplify the top. Using a factor tree as we've done before. Using factor tree. Okay? So really number 4 is just an extension of number 3. It's almost exactly the same. Alright? Just one extra thing. So here in number 5, this one is actually one of my favorite types of problems because it's actually a very, very simple problem as long as you follow your steps. So, in number 1, let's scroll back up. Number 1 said multiply numbers that are in the same location. So, I'll go ahead and rewrite that so that we see it here. Multiply numbers that are in the same location. Alright, and what I'll tell you here is I'm going to use color coding to make it a little bit easier. So you notice 2 is on the outside, 5 is on the outside, and then we have 6 on the in and 14 on the in. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply 2 times 5. So 2 times 5. And then inside we have 6 times 14. Okay? Now on the outside we get 10. And on the inside, 6 times 14, I think is 84, but let's just double check. 6 times 14. Yes, 84. Perfect. Okay, now here in the green we have to factor tree 84. So 84, if you look, it's made of 6 and 14. That's literally what we just did, so I can use that. 6 becomes 2 and 3, and 14 becomes 2 and 7. So I do have a pair right here of 2s. So if you have a number on the outside already, all right, and you've got numbers joining it, you'll always multiply them. So it'll go 10, the 2's come out, and then the only things left are 3 and 7 on the inside. Okay, so final answer is going to be 20 radical 21. And that's all. Okay, so let's make sure we have our steps written down, even though we've done most of these things. It says number 1. Number 1 says multiply numbers that are in the same location. Check. Number 2, factor tree. / simplify. Inside radical. Whoa. Inside radical. Okay. Final step, just make sure to multiply numbers that come out. With existing numbers. What I mean by that is like when we had 10 there already and 2 came out, we multiplied them together. Alright. Alright. And that's it. Great job, guys. Thanks for listening.